Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm, mm-mm, mm-mm, mm. Are we live? I think we are. Just trying to get my look right. How your looks doing? Hope they're doing better than mine. Look at this, what I have to work with. Anyway, hope you guys are doing good. It's the day after income tax day. You guys pay your taxes. I don't want to know. How you doing? It's Tuesday. I'm a day late. We're going to end cinema today. I know I stayed a little longer on it, but we had that vacation break and it kind of broke it up. The spring break, I should say. I'll start grading your quizzes tomorrow. I'm sure you can't wait for that. I'll sign an essay this week. It'll be at the end of the week. It's going to be on a writer, a literary writer, a novelist. Do you know what a novelist is? Can you define novel? We're going to be talking about literature for the next week until next week. Um, when it all began, why it's important, why it matters to read. I know we don't do a lot of reading nowadays. We just read quick little TikTok videos. Even I'm a victim of that. But I do like to sit with a book. I'm from that generation, the book generation. We still like listening to music on vinyl. We still like movies that have stories, not special effects. Is it a thing of the past? I don't know. You tell me. What do you like in novels? Do you read novels? What's the last novel you read? Can you remember? Have you ever read a novel for pleasure? I'm not talking about a school assignment. Um, anyway, I'll be talking about novels and literature for the next week or so as we do hopefully a deep dive into that. But I got to finish cinema today. I want to quickly go through what's left of the 80s, 90s, and current. Um, the documentary film that you watched, Easy Rider Reaching Bulls, ended on 1980. And so that kind of ended the era of, mm, you might call it serious filmmaking by auteur film directors. There's still lots of serious films to come. And when I say serious, I'm talking about small stories set in with modest budgets. I'm not talking about Superman or Batman. Those are good, serious movies too. That's a different thing. Those are franchise sequels, and that became real popular in the 80s. Superman with Christopher um, Reeves, who died tragically by getting his neck broken, and took him a couple more years to die of paralysis from the neck down. And uh, he went from Superman to a guy in a wheelchair. Real tragic end to a really vital life. Um, but during the 80s, we had started off with Rocky. Um, that was about 76 or so, but then this the sequel started in the 80s. I don't know how many sequels there's been, maybe seen two, three, four. I think there's been five. I think he still wants to do another one. He's 80 years old. He's going to take his shirt off. Oh, my Lord. Anyway, it's time to keep your shirt on, um, Sylvester. Anyway, and then we had Tom Cruise starting his run up with sequels. Um, Top Gun, huge hits. These are huge mega hits. And they're looking for sequels. When they're making these movies, they're looking how to make a franchise out of them. And never been thought of before. It's Star Wars. Star Wars, how many has there been? One, two, three, four, five at least. And then there's the there's sub prequels or sub genres, there's TV series, there's animation. There's been so much Star Wars, it's hard to keep track of the trajectory in the franchise of Star Wars. And it was a phenomenon. We've never seen anything like that. Um, Steve Spielberg got in on the sequels with Indiana Jones 1, 2, 3, whatever. I think they just recently did another one. I have no interest in it because I don't want to see Harrison Ford put that silly jacket, and the bullwhip on again and go out like he. And then they, with computer generation, they take the years off his 80-year-old face. He looks great, folks. That's great, but he should look. He's 80. Come on. He's not young Indy anymore. They even made Young Indiana. They made a couple of those. So the franchises really got going in the 80s because Hollywood got real cynical. That's the Hollywood studio system, which has always been cynical about making money, but they also made some high art. The 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they kind of lost their way in the 70s. And then they regained it when they figured out how to make these big budget B movies like Star Wars and Jaws, Indiana Jones, which is simply what they are. They're melodramas. Look up the word melodrama. It's just heightened drama that you won't see in everyday life. You don't see Star Wars in everyday life, or Indiana Jones, or Jaws. Shark doesn't usually attack an entire town, not to my knowledge. But so the 80s is kind of a cynical time for Hollywood, and serious filmmakers didn't know where to turn to because their films were not going to be seen. And they tried to get their they try to play the game. People like Scorsese made a couple bombs. New York, New York. Coppola made some bombs. Um, they tried to play the game. It did not work. I gotta erase this. Hang on. I got some stupid thing coming up on my computer here, and it's messing me up. Get away. Anyway, um, so some of the older generation filmmakers, Robert Altman, couldn't figure out how to make a buck anymore, or how his movies are going to make any money. There it goes. Sorry, get off. There it goes. Uh, and so he resorted to making small budget movies on stage plays. When he coming back to the Five and Dime Jimmy Dean, Nixon, Richard Nixon story, and not not the Oliver Stone version, but one based on a one man show play. Really good, really great. If you like that sort of thing, filmed in Los Angeles, and then other movies. Sam Shepard's Fool for Love, and then he. Let me get rid of this. I don't know where I'm on. Is this okay? Maybe I was off the air there. I hope not. My computer got all glitchy. Hope you guys have the pleasure of seeing this. Anyway, so the 80s is a strange time. There was a few indie thinking filmmakers out there, John Sayles, um, that were starting to percolate. Spike Lee is one. John Sayles, you probably never heard of. Hopefully, you've heard of Spike Lee. Um, David Lynch was starting to make his forays. Now, he had already come up with Eraserhead, one of the most freakish avant-garde art films ever made, and then he made Elephant Man from the popular stage play. And it was all right. And then he bombed with making Dune. He wasn't the right director for the first Dune, not the Dune you're seeing right now. Maybe you see it right now. It's based on a great Frank Herbert sci-fi novel called Dune and its sequels. And even David Lynch didn't know how to make this kind of big budgeted film that Hollywood wanted so much that would make a franchise and give them that revenue that they never get tired of. And then John, um, I'm forgetting one of the directors out right offhand. He's still out there. We're the same age. He's still directing. He did Stranger in Paradise and Down by Law. Anyway, they started coming up with these small stories made by very little money, and it got played in cinemas. Um, Jim Jarmusch. Maybe seen one of his films. I doubt if you have, unless you like a good art film. The last great one he made was called Only Lovers Left Alive, about two aging vampires who've been married for 400 years, and they don't kill anymore for their blood because they're drinking synthetic blood, but then their supply source, they lose their supply source, and they're forced to go back to their old vampire ways. You want to stay alive, you got to drink human blood. That's the downfall. But in their book, they're cool people, and they only want to kill people who deserve it. Anyway, they don't want to just kill random people for their own immortality. So Jim Jarmusch gets most of his funding from foreign sources who still believe in the art film. Um, During the 80s, Jim John Sayles' Return of the Secaucus Seven and David Lynch's Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, Jim Jarmusch's Stranger in Paradise, and Down by Law. They actually are really well received art films that actually turn a profit, but not the kind of profit Hollywood likes. They want the big profit. Um, Spike Lee came out with She's Gotta Have It and Do the Right Thing. And that was a phenomenon because he's a black filmmaker. But the white audiences loved it. So the audience was a crossover to proving once again, it doesn't matter what color or what sex the person is or what their preferred pronouns are. If the film is cool and worthy, people will seek it out. Hollywood has never understood that. They only follow safe trends. Um, so the 80s was just a bizarre time. I remember seeing Stranger in Paradise. I was living in Hollywood trying to be a screenwriter in the 80s, long before you guys were mostly in the world. Um, and Stranger in Paradise, I'd read about it. This is long before the internet. So there's no information. You're not reading the internet for all your info. There was no internet. You had to read it the old fashioned way in the New York Times, LA Times, film, film magazine, which I read all that stuff, and rock and roll magazines. Still do, by the way. Anyway, it was playing in a theater. I remember this very well in West LA, fancy part of West LA. I didn't live in that fancy part of town. And it was playing at a mall, Stranger Paradise. I mean, if we were in class right now, I'd show you a clip of it. A little black and white film that was made for $60,000 with unknown actors. Very slow moving, humorous, funny movie about these two guys traveling with this girl who's one of their cousins, and she's from a foreign country. And she's trying to understand them, and they have no idea how to figure her out. And it was delightful. And I looked around; it was playing next door to the Rocky sequels and the Star Wars sequels, and there's this little gem of a film. So there was still an outlet. Return of the Secaucus Seven made, I think, in about 81 or 82, about these friends getting together for their high school 20th reunion, and they're reminiscing. Filmed for under $100,000, but it was my generation of the filmmaker was similar to my age, and so the baby boomers, my generation, we related to the film. It was our music, our literature, our life, and so we went to this movie because we understood the characters. And that's what I was trying to get through in that movie, Easy Rider, Raging Bulls. What influenced not just the filmmakers, but then what influenced the audience after they saw the film? Well, you saw something you recognized of yourself and of the people, your friends, your music, the clothes you wear, everything. You recognize part of it. And so that was the influence those films had on you as an audience member. Not just that it was a good horror film like The Exorcist and you were scared. Yeah, it's that. There's nothing in Exorcist I can relate to. It was a terrifying, scary, effective film, but I've never known anybody who's possessed or their head spinning around. Maybe you have. Anyway, I haven't had one of those bad days yet. I'm looking forward to it, by the way. So we recognized in these films, these little indie films that are coming out, something of ourselves in these stories. And we weren't seeing ourselves in Rocky. I'm not a boxer. I'm not Indiana Jones out there with my bullwhip fighting Nazis. I'm not Tom Cruise in a jet plane. Uh, but um, I could be in Blue Velvet, the innocent guy in Blue Velvet. I've seen terrifying people like Dennis Hopper in Blue Velvet. I've seen sexy women in Blue Velvet. Things I recognize of the world that I live in. A disturbing world for sure. That's the beautiful thing about Blue Velvet. It's what's under the surface. Don't look at the surface, go under it. And that's where you find the truth. And so these films had their foothold in the 80s. And then Robert Redford, the famous actor from Butch Cassidy Sundance Kid and The Sting, is this loves movies and is a cinephile. He wanted to give back to the community. And so he bought this thing called USA Film Festival that would be in Salt Lake, Utah. He changed the name to Sundance Film Festival, moved the location from Park City, Utah, a ski resort town that he loves to go to, um, and made this film festival that started in about 89 or so, 88 or so. And film festivals were for small art films until about 88 and 89 when a film called Sex, Lies, and Videotape played and Hollywood came knocking. They sent a representative, a distributor up there to see if there's any of these little indie films made by these auteur directors making movies for peanuts. If there's anything of interest that they could scoop up and make a quick buck on. And they saw some hope. And they saw something like Sex, Lives, and Videotape. And now their Sundance has become something really important and prominent for filmmakers everywhere. Uh, for uh, for 2 years, I had made a film called God Drives a Pontiac, by the way, and our dream was to get into Sundance. We didn't make it into Sundance because by the time I did that movie in '93, there was literally 1,000 submissions to get in. They were taking 10 films, and but we did get in this film festival that was a competitive film festival called Slam Dance, and and played in Park City, Utah. So we got to go up there and experience all that. Me and my producer, who was my girlfriend at the time, and the actress in the film, and we saw some hope. And these film festivals, especially Sundance, gave everybody this. We can make a film for under $100,000 with our friends, not known actors, not movie stars, far away from Hollywood, small stories, and maybe we could get a distribution deal from New York or Hollywood or somewhere that might pay us $1 million, maybe more. And then we could pay our debts off. We could pay the people who worked on our movies because nobody got paid. We did what they call deferred payments. And that was the dream for 10 years. Um, that dream's kind of gone now because it you no longer can make that kind of film. Go ahead, you can. I'm trying to make one right now. Who's going to see it? Well, I'll tell you who's going to see it. People on YouTube, and then you get a Patreon, just people to help you pay for things. It's a group effort now to get your films out there because they're not going to show in a movie theater. Nobody even goes to the movies anymore, but they might show on YouTube. You might sell it to Amazon if you're lucky, and get some screenings on small films. It's still possible. That dream is still alive in me, and I'm working on two films right now: a fiction film about aging punk rock people, and a documentary about two of my favorite filmmakers, Sam Peckinpah, who directed The Wild Bunch, and Ingmar Bergman. Two couldn't be more different. I'm combining them together because they need to be together to make sense. It's a personal documentary, my journey as a film fanatic, cinephile, wannabe dreamer, that these two great filmmakers have kept my dreams alive for 50 years longer. I first saw The Wild Bunch when I was 16. First saw Bergman when I was about that same time. I didn't understand his movies. They were complicated and adult. And when he died in 2010, I made it my mission to watch every film he ever made. He made 45 films, folks. And I was awestruck with the depth of his work. Um, Persona, that's all I have to say. You probably, maybe you've heard of The Seventh Seal, maybe not. Famous art film from Sweden. And Bergman never came to Hollywood, never sold out for the money. Uh, and he was a director's director, an actor's director, a writer. He wrote all his own scripts. Real inspiration if you want to make a small personal art film that people have to, when they watch it, they have to question what's going on the screen, maybe not have a pat ending. Watch an Ingmar Bergman film. When we're in my film class, which maybe you guys will take it next time I teach it, Humanities 4, I make everybody watch Persona and write a paper. And so many people go, I don't understand the ending. Well, the ending's not clear cut. And that's okay because real life isn't clear cut. There are no endings in real life, folks. Bergman knows that. And so his movie's not going to end on this. It's all, everybody is happy in the end. Everybody dies in the end. Everybody understands everything in the end. Life isn't like that. So why should his films be like that? Bergman deepens the mystery, and that's important as an artist. I'm going to be talking about that with the writers next week. And to deepen the mystery of our existence. Yes, folks, that's what this is all about. And so then, as the 90s peaked with the phenomenon of Quentin Tarantino in all his films making so much money, everybody started copying him. They try to make films like him. Even I try to make one called Jesus Chrysler. Yes, I pulled out the guns and the violence and the cool looking people saying cool dialogue. And we never finished it because we lost our funding halfway through. And I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I guess I wanted to be a commercial hit too. And now I know what a stupid move that was. And although I wish we'd finished the film, but two of our funding sources pulled out when they got pissed off over something. You never can tell who you get your money from uh, if they want to pull it or not. Anyway, so that's what happened there. But everybody was trying to copy Tarantino, and now he's kind of a, in my opinion, I don't know, you guys probably like him. That's fine, but he's kind of a parody of his own self. The last five movies he made are almost unwatchable to me. It's just quirky, cool dialogue. People who talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. His movies are way too long, and he changes the endings in history. And once upon a time in Hollywood was the last one I saw his. And the Charles Manson gang are killed by a pit bull before they kill everybody in the Sharon Tate house. Didn't happen, folks. He in Incredulous Bastards, he had Hitler assassinated in a movie theater. Didn't happen, folks. He died in a bunker. He killed himself and his girlfriend. As the Russians were bringing it down their neck. So he rewrites history. So you can't take him serious. It's comic book stuff. Okay, is it entertaining? Yes, absolutely. Is it fun to watch? It's okay. Now he looks like a one-trick pony. To me, his best movie ever made, besides Reservoir Dogs, his first one, which I think is a masterwork, um, was Jackie Brown. But he didn't write the script. It's from another source. Elmore Leonard, great novelist who died, wrote these great kind of pulp fiction mysteries, and he wrote Jackie Brown. And so the source materials came from another source, and it's his Tarantino's most, what I could say, adult, mature film, because the people are mature adults. They're not kind of like wannabe cool hipsters that some of his movies are. I think Tarantino's afraid to make a movie that doesn't look cool and hip with the best actors, the best soundtrack. It's time for him to do something real. He says he's going to do one more movie and quit. It's about time. I'll go to it though. Anyway, so we're winding down to the 90s, and foreign filmmakers like Pedro Almodovar from Spain are making some great films. Great films are coming out of South Korea and Japan. Um, they're changing the course of history because they don't have the money we do in here. And I was going to say Hollywood. We don't live in Hollywood, although we sort of do. Uh, they don't have studios like we do. They don't have the resources we do, which is good. Robert Rodriguez, a filmmaker I respect, made his first movie for $7,000, and El Mariachi, and so it got noticed. For his next movie, they gave him $10 million to make a remake of it called Desperado. Maybe you've seen it, and he didn't want the money. He said, "Don't give me 10 million for one movie. Give me 10 million for 10 movies, and I'll bring back 10 $1 million movies." They go, "No, that's not what we want. We want you to spend the money on the special effects, on the actors, on all the cool, groovy shit that Hollywood, because that's where they make their money." And he rebelled against it. Of course, he ended up being like everybody else. Once the money started flowing in, now he's very successful. He has a studio in Austin, Texas. He's really put his money where his art is. He's he made a fortune on these kids movies called Spy Kids, and now he makes whatever he wants to make. Him and Tarantino work together a lot, and but he still has that independent spirit of the guy who, in film school, when his teacher said you'll never make a filmmaker, boy, did he proved them wrong. Anyway, if you guys are filmmakers, want to be filmmakers, don't ever let anybody tell you you're not going to be one. If you need to be one, you will be one. I was told no every step of the way when I was trying to get my film made. We are trying to raise money. No, no. What's the commercial aspect? Who do you got to star in it? What? No, no, no. And finally, we had a couple of people say yes. Of course, we were only asking for $30,000. We weren't asking for a lot, and we filmed it. My film, God Drives a Pony, for 13 days in Santa Fe, New Mexico, with local actors, everybody working for free. It took us a year to film, edit. We did the soundtrack. Even I formed a rock band, Wall of Noise, and we wrote the music and we played the music ourselves. It's total do it yourself. It's total punk rock, but DIY. You want to make a movie, you don't need anybody saying no. You need everybody to say yes. Let's do this together. And that's what you look for. And that's what I'm looking for right now. I'm starting to try to find casting for this film. And I don't want people to go, well, do you got the money? What are you going to pay me? If I hear that, I walk out the door. I go, I thought you were an artist. Don't you want to work on something cool? Um, anyway, all art comes out of passion in a belief in what you're doing. If you don't believe in it, have the passion, don't do it. So anyway, now we're getting out of the 90s and we're into the 2000s. The video age is coming. The you, you can make films on these things. Thing called Dogma 95 in Copenhagen starts, and they start making films the old-fashioned way, but on video cameras. Digital video cameras became very doable, and you could release it into a movie theater, and you can make them for very little money and the old school, old-fashioned way. And so Dogma 95 became a movement that I still believe in. Don't need all the big budget. You don't need the special effects. Make a real story about real people. Treat everybody well. Have fun doing it, and maybe you'll have a product that gets released in the world. And if you make some money, you all split in the profits. Anyway, uh, so that all started in the 2000s, and movies like so many movies that came out in that era that were pushing the envelope on budgets. And so, in a way, we went back to making film for next to nothing with unknown actors. But then sometimes You could get a commercial break, and you can make a movie like the Blair Witch Project for $100,000 and end up selling it for 5 million. Very clever film, made on a video camera, with unknown actors, but it was so cleverly marketed that they turned a big profit. They got to make more movies after that. So it can happen, folks, if you want to keep your dream alive. Or you do what I do: you teach and you make films. Um, it's very doable. Or work at Starbucks and make a film. Work at In and Out and make a film. Anyway, if you got the passion and some friends and a couple cameras, iPhone, doesn't take much. Just do it. Tell your story. Get it out there. You've got a voice. We all do. So then the 2000s essentially has turned into Marvel comic book world. Maybe you love that stuff. What do you think I think about it? I don't poop on it. I've watched a lot of it. Some of it's very highly entertaining. But like Scorsese says, and I do follow what he says because even though he's several years older than me, he says they're kind of like um, amusement park rides. Yeah, and nothing's wrong with amusement parks. I just don't want that to be my cinema. That's fine. But you watch, how many Batmans are you going to watch? How many Wonder Woman? How many sequels? And it's all Marvel now. Marvel, Ant Man, and Iron Man, and uh, X Men, and Iron Man, and it's a lot. And how many sequels have they made? And they all make a boatload of money. That's a fact. And that's kind of where we are now. They've kind of exhausted the Marvel world. DC world didn't quite hit the big time as Marvel did because DC's a little darker, The Dark Knight, etc. Um, so where do we go from here? We keep trying to make superheroes out of Aquaman, and after they make 4 or 5 sequels, it gets kind of silly after a while. How can a guy who's a fish, how come he's always out of water fighting crime on the streets of New York? He's not fighting crime underneath the water for the most part. And I want to say, put on a shirt. It's time to put on a shirt. Anyway, that's where we are now. But there's a lot of hope out there. Lots and lots of product is coming out of South Korea and the Pacific Rim countries. Uh, a movie from South Korea won the Academy Award a couple years ago. Parasite, really wonderful original film. Uh, Coming out of South America, Mexico, Africa, South Africa, Iran. They're not allowed to make films there because they got a pretty closed government. But the films get out in the world, so making a film is dangerous. Sometimes you got to do something like that. We're not in danger here yet. I can make any film I want. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. In places with dictatorships, Syria, they don't allow that. If you criticize the government, you could go to jail. You could get executed. Would you make a film knowing you might go to jail for it? Would you? Um, these are hard questions that we here in this democracy don't have to put up with. We have freedom of expression, sort of. We're finding out the limits of that with Instagram and TikTok being the new cinema. People don't have patience much for a 90-minute film. They want to see a 15-second TikTok video. Okay, that's interesting. I make videos in I make 1-minute videos. It's me lecturing about the decay of art. Why do I do that? It's an outlet. Um, and 1 minute is all I need. I don't want more. I'm taking 35 minutes tonight. I can't shut up. I will shut up. I'm gonna I'm gonna shut it down right now and just leave on this. We are cinema. Cinema is everywhere. Charles Goddard famously said, "Everything is cinema." You think about that. There are cameras watching our every move. Every store we're going to, we're driving down the street, cameras are following us. We're in the movies, folks, whether you like it or not. So go make your own movie and don't give up going to the movie theater. It's still a great experience. Don't just sit at home watching Netflix. I'd love it. That's what I do. But every once in a while, I go out to be with other people. Watching a film in a dark theater is holy. Please keep experiencing it and keep cinema alive. I'll see you next time when we talk about literature. Take care. What's happening here?